So we ran across an app called Memories Await in Meriwether, and we thought we'll take the tour. Well, today, Carol and I will take you on a driving tour of Greenville, Georgia, and show you the historical places. The app, I believe, takes you around the square about 4 times and visits 2 graveyards. In this video, we take a little different route and visit everything but the 2 graveyards. So join us as we learn some history and crazy stories here on Loving the Real World.
The First Methodist Church in Greenville was founded in 1831. It was originally built on College and Newman Streets. This church is also famous for the fact that it held almost all the families in town for a prayer meeting in 1861 when the Battle of Bull Run had taken members from every family.
Now 2 doors down is our next stop.
This is currently the Meriwether Historical Society. It was built in 1888, and for more than 100 years it was the Park Culpeper Law Office. The building is country French in appearance with a 4-cornered pointed rooftop made with pressed tin that's interlocking.
Now we head down to Revel Street and take a ride.
This is the old jail that was built in 1896 after the original jail was destroyed by the Great Cyclone of 1893. The jail's hanging tower was reportedly only used once. Its Italianate style was the choice for a new modern look. Its asymmetrical lines are in keeping with the gay 90s. It also included a residential section for the sheriff and his family. This site was also used in Murder in Coweta County. The book was published in 1976 and the movie in 1983.
Now we turn around and cross the street, then proceed forward until we get to the stop sign and look to the right.
This home was built by William T. Revel in 1894. He founded the Meriwether Vindicator in 1872, which is the county's oldest newspaper and oldest continuous business. He and his daughter, Nellie O'Hara, operated a private school in the back of the house, which most of the residents attended. This house was once a 2-story house, but then after the cyclone, it was remodeled into a 1-story.
Now we turn right and we travel a long 0.6 miles. You will see the next destination on the right, but you want to travel just a little bit farther and get to the curve and turn around, and you can pull off into the pull-out area on the opposite side of the road.
Twin Oaks. Reminds me of Gone with the Wind. Oh, but that was 12 Oaks. Twin Oaks was built in the 1850s to command an original 3,000-acre plantation. This was built for J.M.C. Robertson by Elbert Wimbush, who was a slave. It was such a skilled builder that when the house was finished, there wasn't even enough lumber left for a chicken coop. It's an outstanding example of a Greek revival antebellum style. In the back of the house is the original cookhouse and also a French pioneer trader log cabin that was built between 1790 and 1810.
Now we head back to town. As you enter the square, look to your left.
The old fire bell. Before the days of sirens, Greenville's night watchman, or whoever got the news of a fire, would rush to ring the bell. The bell had a double clapper, which, when pulled by 2 ropes and when rung from both sides, sounded like a whistle.
Probably the best thing now is to park at the courthouse and walk around the square.
This is the fourth courthouse to stand in this spot. It rose from the ashes in 1976 fires and 1980 faithful restoration of its 1903 predecessor. It features many improvements, including an elevator. Lots of people and foundations and companies gave money in order to help with this restoration. The fallen Lady Justice on the dome was replaced with a beautiful statue from Massachusetts and the clock ordered from France. It intones the hour in the key of A. Also on the grounds are monuments to the Meriwether military.
Now, as you circle the courthouse and across the street is our next stop.
Greenville Drug Company building was built in 1890 and has been run by the Tigner family since then. One of the famous people was Mary Alice Dupree Tigner, who was Georgia's first female pharmacist, but was recently sold to You Save It. It's still run by Charles Tigner. There are also many historical displays inside the building.
Almost directly across the street is our next two stops.
Meriwether County has been the second home for FDR and also the home of 3 governors. The Ofuskee Pass, the main branch of the famous Upper Creek trading route from the Savannah River to Indians, and it passed through here.
Now we circle the square back to the bell and take the next right.
Hill's Brothers Store was built in the 1890s. In the 1900s, it became farm supply store, but it sold everything from chewing tobacco to custom-made suits. It was also a place for men to gather and discuss politics. In fact, it's said that President Roosevelt was known to drive by and ask, "How are politics going at Hill Brothers Corner?" Across the street is the Greenville Mural, part of the Meriwether Murals Trail, created by John W. Christian. FDR is also featured, as well as historical buildings and some notable citizens. From left to right, Richmond D. Hill, the first African-American mayor. Also, George W. Jenkins, Jr., who founded Publix. Joseph N. Terrell and John M. Slate, both governors of Georgia.
Now we went down LaGrange Street and turned on William Street, made a U-turn, and looked to the right.
The Freeman Clark home was built in 1893. It was one of the first homes rebuilt after the cyclone for Y. Frank Freeman Sr. The second family in the home included another great, Louis Automobile Clark, who was the captain of the football team under John Heisman. It's late Victorian style with gingerbread or carpenter Gothic trim.
Now go down LaGrange and look at the Ness house on the left.
The Peavy Flynn home is Gothic revival in style and was built for Confederate Major and State Senator George Peavy around in 1870. Also, the Flynn family had a television personality, Phil Flynn, who's well known for his Georgia Camera featured broadcast.
We proceed down LaGrange and cross over a small bridge and look to the right.
The Truett Jones home, which was built in 1836, is one of the oldest in Greenville and one of the fewest not destroyed by the 1893 cyclone. Because it was on the main stagecoach route, travelers often stayed in the upper rooms. The beams and boards were put together with wooden pegs, which were numbered by Roman numerals. It also has an interesting front door. It's an old Southern colonial or plantation style architecture home.
Now, we don't want you to get whiplash, but the next house is across the street on the left.
The Davidson Mahone House received the name as Gables for the 5 gables at the front of the house. Samuel Monroe Davidson built the house in 1870. He served in the Civil War, and upon returning after a medical discharge, he had thought about building in LaGrange. However, he discovered that boys and girls were able to promenade hand in hand at dusk, so he decided to build in Greenville instead, away from the city wickedness. He was also instrumental in bringing the railroad to Greenville. The house is a Gothic revival in Victorian architecture. At one time, it was T-shaped, having 3 rooms on each of its 2 floors, with a front hallway and cross passage at the back.
The next home on the same side of the street is our next stop.
The Pinkston Atkins home was built in 1893. Dr. John Wesley Pinkston was a prominent physician in the Meriwether County. He took over his practice from his elderly father. He originally planned to convert this into a hospital and live elsewhere, but that didn't happen. It's a spacious 18-room home with halls that are 40 feet long, accommodating 8 bedrooms and 3 baths. There are 11 fireplaces, one of which is located in the downstairs hall.
Now we head on down the road past R.D. Hill Street and look at the second house on the left. As we do that, you have time to go down there and hit that subscribe button and maybe the notification button. And if you like the show, give it a thumbs up.
The Wimbish Gaston Hand Home is a Greek revival home built between 1840 and 1845. It was built for a Dr. H.S. Wimbish by Albert Wimbish, a slave who was a master builder and built several of the grand homes in the area, including Twin Oaks. 1866, the next owner, Dr. Joseph Walker Anthony, decided to take away 5 rooms and the 2 wings of this house and reassemble them next door for his son and bride, and the bride was the daughter of the original owner, Dr. Wimbish.
We proceed down past Park Street and stop at the first house on the right.
The Pinkston Todd home was built in 1893 for William Lucas Pinkston. It has a wide, comfortable wraparound porch and is an inviting haven for conversation. Mr. Will, as he was called, was a bookkeeper for the Atkins Brother Mercantile Store on the Courthouse Square. He retired at 79 years of age. He died on his birthday in 1969 and was 105 years old.
Now it's time to spin around again, looking across LaGrange Street to see the next stop.
The Park Plant Home was built in 1899 to 1900 for John Wilds. It was constructed of the finest materials. Notice the rising sun motif on the lower gable. Each morning, Mr. Park, who kept a well-supplied pantry, would unlock the pantry, give the cook the provisions for the day, and then relock the door.
Okay, 200 feet down the road and on the right is our next stop.
The terrace was built by Roswell James and Minnie Revel Atkinson in 1910. The couple had no children, but were greatly interested in the education of Meriwether youth. For years, they sent 3 promising high school students from their community to college. The house is built in classic revival style. On their trip to the Roman Forum in Athens Marathon, they collected stones and pebbles, which are now embedded in the doorway of the home's front portico.
We proceed to the house next door.
The Reagan Downs home was built in 1832. During the Civil War, it was used for wounded and convalescing soldiers. Now, I'm not sure we have all of this story from the Historical Society, but apparently Mr. Atkins rolled Mr. Reagan's house down the hill to where it is now, so that he, Mr. Atkins, could build the terrace. Once, while the Reagans were on a trip to Cuba, they sent back a barrel of oranges to be put on the square of Greenville for the citizens to enjoy a rare treat.
We continued to the next house on the same side of the street.
The Harding Fricks home was recently built in 1986. It has a tidewater style suggestive of the 18th century Virginia. It also has a dormered roof with a widow's walk.
We proceed to pass the next house and stop at the house next to that.
The Hill home was built in 1893 for B.O. Hill and his wife Ellen Pinson Hill. It was originally a gingerbread style, but was remodeled to the Greek Revival style. However, they retained the stained glass windows and the light fixtures from the gingerbread style.
We proceeded 0.4 miles down LaGrange and looked at the house on the left.
The Warner Gabriel Blanchard home was originally a one-story Greek Revival built in 1835 for Judge Hiram Warner of Massachusetts, who became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Georgia. Judge Warner's daughter had the Callaway home from a mile away moved and placed on top for the upper floor. The home's dimensions were the same, but the doorway fans and side lights, as well as the interior woodwork, were interestingly different. All right, the best part of the story happened during the Civil War. Even though the judge was from the North, that didn't spare him any trouble from the Yankees. After they plundered his plantation, Wilson's raiders hung him in a grove of trees near the house. Thinking he was dead, they later cut him down and to reuse the rope. The judge managed to crawl back to the house. He recovered and lived on to become Georgia's Chief Justice.
We're back on the road again for 0.3 miles. The next house is on the left.
The Tigner Neal home is considered a neoclassical Victorian Queen Anne. It was built as a one-story home in 1890 for the Greenville druggist James O. Tigner and his young wife Martha Hill. However, in 1894, they had a rapidly expanding family, so they added the second story. As was often the custom, the kitchen was built separately and connected with a breezeway. The kitchen endured several fires. In 1904, indoor plumbing arrived in Greenville. The family added a 6-foot clawfoot bathtub, a copper-lined oak toilet, and scroll iron bracketed sink with nickel-plated fixtures.
Our next stop is the next door down on the same side of the street.
The Lancaster Candler Gordon home was built in the 1900s by J.O. Tigner for his manager and cook, Sarah Martin Tigner, and her husband, Bradley Lancaster. Bradley used to be a boarder at the J.O. Tigner house. Upon her death, Sarah bequeathed the house to her godson, Asa G. Candler V of the Atlanta Coca-Cola Candlers. And the Candler family did lots of renovations and additions to the home. As we head back to town, we tell you some stories of the cyclone that hit in March of 1893. First of all, it came during the night when people were asleep. Of the 175 residences in town, only 5 were left untouched. It also destroyed the courthouse, 2 schools, and the Baptist church. The town marshal was caught on the courthouse square, so he yanked up a manhole cover and jumped in. At Tigner's home was destroyed, and he was blown into the nearby Greenville Cemetery. He grabbed a hold of a large oak tree that was near the tomb of Major David C. Rose, who had been buried since 1850. But when the oak tree blew over, the grave opened wide, and Tigner fled again, fearing the haunted rather than the storm. In June of 1871, soon after the close of the Civil War, it was a difficult time for African Americans. A group got together and formed what they called themselves the Greenville Colored Baptist Church. The first building was erected on this spot the next year. However, it was destroyed by the cyclone in 1893, but a group rebuilt it in August of that year, calling it the Springfield Baptist Church of Christ.
Okay, after leaving the church, we drive back to Terrell Street, turn right, and the next building is on the right.
At one time, this was the old depot for the Central of Georgia Railroad. From 1947 to 1970, this was the station for the Columbus-Atlanta passenger train Man o' War, named after the racehorse who was considered the best racehorse of the 20th century. It's now the R.D. Hill Multipurpose Center, named for the first African-American mayor of Georgia.
Continue down Terrell Street until you get to Depot Street. Stop at the stop sign and turn left, like you're going to the courthouse. Turn right on Roosevelt. The house will be located on your right behind a bunch of trees.
The Fitzmorrison home was built in 1855. It was originally a 1.5-story house with just columns around the porch. Dr. Pryor Fitz hired the architect builders Crowder Ledbetter to remodel it. They added a full second story and an impressive 2-story portico. The next home is 0.7 miles farther down on Roosevelt Highway. It's the Render home, built by James Render in 1832. The original house was put together with pegs. In the earliest 20th century, James Render's namesake and grandson remodeled it to its present classical style.
Now we turn around and go back towards town, 0.8 miles. We want to turn right on Terrell Street and stop.
Park Wilson Home was built in 1914 and was designed by Atlanta architect Henrietta Dozer. Major John Parks built the home for his daughter Martha and her husband. Its outstanding features include chestnut and heart pine floors, stained glass windows, and 8 fireplaces.
Okay, now continue down Terrell Street about 200 feet. Take a left into the paved parking lot. Cross it, turn left on College Street, and proceed to the corner and look to the left for the next house.
The Terrell home, built in 1856, was the home of one of Georgia governors, Joseph Meriwether Terrell. It was also the home to another number of Terrell doctors, lawyers, as well as state representative and a judge.
That wraps up our tour of historical places in Greenville, Georgia. I hope you join us next time for something else, something new, and something special. So don't forget, like, share, and subscribe, and click that notification button. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.